Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Welcome to The Ray Taylor Show, where I bring you the reviews on the latest movies and TV shows, as well as classic and foreign films. I'm your host, Ray Taylor, and on this podcast, I'll be talking about all things film and television. Whether you're looking for a new show to binge or want to know if that new blockbuster is worth the trip to the theater, or just want to hear my thoughts on a classic or foreign film, I've got you covered. So join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for new episodes, and let's dive into the world of film and television together. On this episode, I am talking about the Netflix documentary Longest Third Date. This recently came out, 2023, directed by Brent Hodge. This stars, the subject of this documentary is Khani Lee and Matt Robertson. The plot of this movie: when Matt and Connie match on Hinge, sparks fly. They spontaneously fly to Costa Rica for their third date and get stuck as the world shuts down in March 2020 because of the coronavirus. An extended stay in paradise becomes the ultimate test of compatibility. Now, this movie, I wasn't sure what I was going to... I had a lot of options of what I was going to review for today. And when looking through, this caught my eyes. Like, oh, that's an interesting title. I look at the little description of it. That's a very interesting thing. So I decide this makes the most sense for me. And when I started this documentary, I almost regretted starting this documentary when I started. I was like, what am I doing? Why did I do this? I think I made a horrible mistake. But once the story kind of gets going in like the second act, I was hooked. And by the end of this documentary, I loved it. It's short. The runtime is one of the reasons why I decided to watch this. This movie's only an hour and 15 minutes. This documentary, hour and 15. So short runtime, kind of light subject matter, all pluses for when I was sitting down. I did a lot of long movie watching this past week, so I wanted something short, sweet, to the point, and this seemed super interesting, right? And the idea, two people getting to know each other in a very unique way, something that historically hasn't happened for almost 100 years. So very interesting. And because of that, I would recommend this movie. I would. If it sounds like something that you would enjoy by the description, if that hooks you in the same ways it hooked me, you may second guess yourself at the beginning of this documentary. But I would say if the hook and the premise of this documentary intrigued you enough to hit play, then by the end, you'll be happy you did. At least I was. So I would recommend it if anybody's into that. Especially if you're into reality TV shows. I mean, there's a lot of reality TV shows that are very similar to this in many ways. But this is just about two people and not like a group of people that are trapped on an island. This is a very kind of a unique case study. And I'll get into all that as I review this movie. So, initial description, very interesting, very unique story. So curious, right? Made me choose the movie. I had a lot of other options. The two people went on a trip for their third date, and the pandemic hit, and everything got shut down, right? So no flights home. And what started as a 4-day trip turned into a lot more than 4 days, right? And like I said, this could almost be a premise for a reality dating show, which those exist, which I really don't like those. I like dipping into reality shows as a form of entertainment that allows me to completely unplug my brain, right? There are some reality TV shows, guilty pleasures. I don't really feel guilty watching reality shows, right? Because they serve a purpose. They're, they're like junk food for the brain in a lot of ways. And there's certain brands of junk food that I enjoy, And I wouldn't say necessarily this movie is junk food in the same way that those dating reality shows might be, or reality shows in general might be, because it is a very unique situation. This isn't like a situation produced. There aren't producers and things like that. Obviously, the editing, they could be, they could tell the story in the way they could, but it's, it's something that happened globally. A very interesting kind of perspective, a story that came out of what was a global pandemic, right? So I say that elevates it a little bit more than your standard dating reality TV show that has like a gimmick and like, people that know they're there to be on a reality show, where these people weren't necessarily, they didn't know what this was going to be when they set out to do it. So the fact that I was very tired when I was making this decision, the hour 15-minute runtime was a great option, and it just seemed super interesting, right? And this documentary starts by setting up, you find out they met on Hinge, right? You get to, there's talking head interviews mixed with reenactments. At least at the beginning, there's reenactments of the two people that were involved in this documentary, just kind of reenacting what their first date was like, what it was like, their first impressions of each other, right? And they're both not interested in being in relationships, right? They just want to date somebody, kind of have a short-term thing, not necessarily just hooking up either, right? Because they don't, on the first date, he only kisses her on the cheek, and that's it. So it's not like, it's a very unique kind of use case in a dating app where neither of them are using it to hook up, but neither of them are interested in a long-term relationship or any kind of relationship. They just want to hang out and date, and, so that's kind of the setup for these two people, where they're coming from, what their intentions are, or what their intentions were, right? But they both also want to live life to the fullest, right? They're both making decent money. They're both younger, right? So traveling, having adventures, those kinds of things would imply that this type of thing could happen, right? That they would, on a third date, out of nowhere, kind of have this idea to go to Costa Rica, which I kind of feel like is insane. But so you got these talking head interviews where you not only you hear from them, but you hear from their two closest friends, really. And that's kind of it, right? It's very simple documentary, and a lot of the footage was filmed by the dude who is a vlogger, and so he documented a lot of this. And so because of that footage, you get to see what it was like for them while they were dealing with this whole scenario, and then the talking heads of them speaking, kind of like reflecting on the time, how they may have, like there's a moment where she sees, like, this documentary opens with basically watching this guy Matt's trailer for himself, for his blog or his YouTube page, which is very much like what you would see in like a travel documentary show of like a young guy wanting to turn his life into a movie and showing clips from all these adventures he's gone on, traveling the world, right? Kind of pretentious on a level, and something that when the woman involved in this relationship saw, she said if she had seen this before their first date, she probably wouldn't have dated. She never would have gone out with him. Like, if she had known he was a vlogger, then that would have been a red flag for her in the beginning of this whole thing. So kind of an interesting setup to this, where, in my opinion, the reason why I wasn't very enthused about my decision was because, he kind of seemed like a douchebag. And she just seemed like somebody that makes poor decisions, has poor judgment, right? She didn't know, like, she didn't look into this guy at all or ask questions. Like, I don't know. We don't know what they talked about or what the first two dates were like. right? And it seems like they didn't really get to know each other that well on the first 2 dates. But anyway. Right, so the initial impression of this guy, kind of full of himself, kind of a douchebag, and then my impressions of her, just kind of poor judgment. So during the setup, I was starting to regret my decision. And then when they decide to go to Costa Rica on their third date, right, he says, oh, the plane flights are cheap. Let's go to Costa Rica. It just felt like they're both idiots. Like going on a trip with somebody that you've been dating for a while can be a big thing, right? Spending an extended amount of time with somebody that you're still kind of getting to know, even if you are in a relationship, you get to see a different side of somebody when you're around them 24/7 or 24 hours for four days, right? You're going to get to know. It is like an accelerant for a relationship. And these are two people that don't want a relationship. So anyway, they decide to go to Costa Rica. I am going to get into spoilers. Like, I don't feel this is spoilers. This is just the setup of the movie, right? This is the first, 10 minutes of the movie, setting up what they did. They went on 2 dates, which I'll talk about those dates, and I'll get into details and stuff. But just the setup of this thing, which is during the setup, I regretted my decision. Once they go and things change, we get into the meat of this documentary, then I get more and more invested in it. Right? And that's when their return, that meat is when their plans to return after the 4 days gets canceled because everything gets shut. The world gets shut down, which I also think is kind of crazy, right? Because there's a lot of people the conspiracy theory people out there that think that the United States shut down in order to attack businesses or whatever. But it's the entire world shut down. So it's you would have to, for the first time ever, coordinate with every government. It's the only time all governments in the world agreed on something to shut down, to attack businesses, to attack economies. It doesn't make any sense to attack. And most countries exist in a capitalist society where it's it goes completely against everything. It makes no sense that they somehow would be able to orchestrate something to shut everything down. It just doesn't. It's it's the most absurd. As it are most conspiracy theories that require a level of organization and acceptance and rule following that I just never experienced anywhere in anything. You can't keep secrets forever. You can't effortlessly get everybody to agree and follow the rules of something very. It's even people who are threatened with death aren't able to be controlled as effectively as would need be to pull off this massive false thing of shutting everything down just to attack. It's just insane. But it's interesting because we see it how it was. It wasn't just the U.S. shutting down. Costa Rica shut down. Everybody shut down, right? So their plans change. Everything gets shut down. Stay in place order. Everywhere in the world, stay in place order. Quarantine. Everywhere. Every country. And these two people against relationship, being forced to spend every day with each other in a foreign country during a time where everything is shut down globally. It's also that aspect of this that makes it kind of like a reality show, right? Most reality shows, they are quarantined from society. They are stuck in a house. They are stuck in a location. They are not able to leave. They don't interact with other people on the outside. So that kind of aspect of reality shows is present in this because of the quarantine that happened globally, right? And that's what intrigued me. because it's interesting to see how people deal with being around new people that they don't really know, as these two people were, for an extended period of time. It's like, it's a social experiment in a lot of ways to see how people handle it. It's one of the reasons why people like reality shows, the drama of what happens when you force people to be around each other for extended periods of time, and to see how drama naturally comes about, because humans are insane creatures. A little bit easier with this because it's only two people, right? The more people you add, the more potential for insanity can happen. And over the time of this, you see, they become far more sympathetic to me. And where I started off very judgmental, they become very sympathetic by the end. And by the end, I love both of them so much, right? I actually got emotional at the end. The beginning of this, I'm like, I hate you guys. You're a douchebag. You're an idiot. Why are you doing this? And by the end, I'm like, oh, this is so beautiful, right? So kind of crazy. And it's happened, like, I don't know what else I've watched recently, but there's something else that I watched that I did not like when it started, and through the runtime of the thing, I progressively got more and more into whatever it was I was watching. I want to say, I can't remember what it was. I want to say it was a movie that was nominated for Best Picture last year, potentially. I don't remember exactly, but I know I've said these words very recently. This is not the first time within the last few months that when I started watching a movie, this being a documentary, I didn't like it. I regretted it. I didn't like and then by the end, I was like, this is amazing. So I love when that happens, right? One of the reasons why I tend to finish things, I mean, especially if I'm going to review it, I finish it. I'm not going to talk about a movie that I didn't watch. I can't do that. And especially if I'm going to talk shit. Like, if I don't like something, I will force myself to watch it and continue to watch it so I can at least be accurate in my shit talking. And this one just changed my opinion completely by the end. And just kind of another example of my own issues, my own problems, where I can just be so judgmental on first impressions. Like, I'm, as I get older, I realize faults that I have of things that I've noticed that I've been throughout my life. I am very judgmental about people based on first impressions. I always felt like I had a good meter or a good gauge on people. And this is different because I'm not meeting them in person. But because I'm a very protective person and I have my own trauma and issues, I tend to base a lot of how I treat people on first impressions. Now, that definitely can change. I could have a good first impression and they can prove me wrong. And vice versa. Sometimes it's just not consistent. So I have to remind myself that just because the first impression may be one thing, it may be positive or negative, it's not the end-all, be-all label that person should be stuck with. Let's take a quick break from this episode because I want to promote. Are you looking for a way to take your love of The Ray Taylor Show to the next level? Look no further than Inspire Disorder Plus. As a member, you'll get access to a whole host of amazing perks, including the full week of shows, ad-free in both audio and video versions, a live painting archive, early access to the many faces, members-only discounts and deals, a podcast back catalog with over 600 episodes. But that's not all. As a member, you'll get access to my personal blog as well as my creative writing. You'll also get the chance to ask me anything you want. With all of these benefits and more, Inspire Disorder Plus is a must-have for any fan of The Ray Taylor Show. So don't wait. Go sign up now. Head on over to inspiredisorder.com/plus and start enjoying all of the amazing perks of the membership. And now, let's get back to the show. It also shows like how love and compassion and understanding can make me cry. Like understanding those things, those triggers that that make me feel like I'm an actual human being and I have a heart beating inside my chest. And I think in some ways that the way this doc is set up, how they start the doc, I feel like it almost intends on making you feel that the way I did for the first impression. Right? They kind of introduce this character, especially Matt, in a way, like the first thing is that you see his trailer and you see how people react to his trailer. This thing, I'm movie Matt. My life is I'm going to make my life a movie, right? And they're like, he's like, everything about this guy is like, you're a douchebag. You're like so full of yourself, kind of a thing. So I think in some ways the documentary is intending on that, knowing that once you get into this, you will hopefully have a different perspective on not only him, but everybody involved. But it's just these two, how they deal with this event that hasn't happened in 100 years, right? A very unique thing to happen to these people who are already doing a very unique thing, going to Costa Rica on their third date and forcing them to get to know each other in a way that most people never will. Most people are never going to, after the first time spending time with the person, be forced to only be around them for an extended period of time. Like, this is a very unique situation that you just don't see ever happening. Especially two people going into this who are very comfortable being single and not looking for relationships, right? And as my view of these two people changed throughout the course of the documentary, the characters in these two people in this documentary, their views change as well. So I think part of this is the evolution of perception when it comes to who these characters are and who they are to each other, which I find that to be interesting as well. But I do want to get into spoilers because there are specifics I want to talk about, right? Try to set up and structure without spoilers, but I do want to get into spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled on this doc, I highly recommend checking it out. It's only an hour 15. Super short. If you're into reality shows, then it seems like a no-brainer. And if you're just interested in a documentary about a very unique situation two humans could be in and what happens, I think it's a very, a unique peek into an event that, there could definitely be another pandemic way sooner than the last pandemic, but it's very interesting, and I'm sure there's a lot of stories from the pandemic that are somewhat similar to this. So anyway, spoilers from this point out. Why I didn't like these people, right? Before anything, we see his promo video, as I said, that trailer for himself, the fact that he labels himself, his brand, his movie Matt, right? They met on Hinge. Their first date, they go eat Indian food, and he's taking pictures of his food. He's taking pictures of their drinks, right? And she's like, okay. It's like, she thought it was like, it's interesting. We're going to Indian food. That's a bold first choice for a restaurant. And then she's kind of like, and this guy's like taking food. So I already don't like this guy, right? He's movie Matt. He's got a trailer for his life as if he's like Anthony Bourdain in Parts Unknown. And when he goes to restaurants, he's taking pictures of the food and drinks, right? Like all things that kind of annoy me, that would annoy me. And after the date, he only gives her a kiss on the cheek, which she's like, what was that, right? And she wanted more than just a kiss on the cheek, so she texts him. He's like, okay, well, it sounds like we need a second date. So they go on a second date. They decide to go axe throwing. Very interesting. More of a fun date, right? You eat dinner, interesting food. Second date, going axe throwing. And what this dude does is he brings his friend on his second date. Another douchebag. Like, who's bringing... Like, I understand if you're dating somebody for a while, sure. You're going to go and hang out with friends on these, but your second date, you haven't even, like, kissed lips. You kissed her on the cheek once, and that, like, it's almost like this guy is trying to put off friend zone vibes hardcore. But, like, I would never want to invite my friend on a second date. I would not want to go on a date where the girl brings her friend, unless it's something like, maybe if we're going to, like, a concert. Like, there's certain things I guess would be fine, but I don't know. And he also brought, like, Matt's a white guy. Khani is Asian. And he brings his Asian friend. So, like, even her was thinking, there was this, I thought that, like, oh, maybe he's just bringing his Asian friend to, like, show that he's, I don't know. Just adds to the confusing nature of why he would bring a friend anyway. Right? And you see the real people doing the reenactments, which I was kind of like, because I wasn't digging this and I know where this is going, where it's like, it's going to be his footage. Probably they're also doing the reenactments. I was like, I don't like these people, and I feel like I'm supporting people I don't like because they're so involved in this documentary. I would imagine that they are, I don't know. I would imagine that they're profiting off of this documentary in some way. Like, I felt bad that I was encouraging this guy that I think is a douchebag to be profiting off of this documentary. I was like, I just, like, felt conflicted watching this documentary, right? Because he just seems like a douchebag. He also has, like, super white teeth. His beard is, like, perfectly manicured. He's got a man bun. Like, there are so many things about this guy. He takes pictures of his food and his drinks. He's got a trailer for his life as if he's like, there are so many, like, douchebag red flags for me that I'm like, this is like, like, I can't understand. Like, it's making my skin crawl. And then knowing that that person is probably profiting off of this documentary was bumming me out. I was like, why did this... It only added to my regret for hitting play on this. And then, right, second date goes fine. I don't even know if they kissed yet. Maybe they kissed. I don't know. But on the third date, they go to Costa Rica. Right? For the third date, he mentioned before, he's like, flights are really cheap right now. What do you say we go to Costa Rica? And she's like, she's up for anything. They want to live life to the fullest. Also, to that checklist of douchebaggery, he uses the phrase YOLO. Like, I don't know how long this list of douchebaggery can be, but, like, there's, like, I am in pain watching the, like, the most douchebag things after most douchebag things. But YOLO, you only live once. Let's go to Costa Rica on our third date, right? Flights are cheap. Clearly, they both are making decent money. To even think of spending however much to fly somewhere and stay at a resort for a few days, I don't have any idea how much that would cost. But there's, like, I've been poor for the majority of my life, so the idea of being able to afford that in any situation, let alone on a third date, to go somewhere and spend that kind of money where the potential for you two not getting along is so high because you know so little about each other. You have so little, like, the chemistry involved. There's, like, very little. They're both, like, have walls up. All of these things doesn't make any sense. Right? Almost also kind of feeling like he's trying to impress her, right? Like, let's spend this, let's go do this thing. Like, because it seems like flying somewhere on a date seems like a thing people with money would do, right? It's like, let's just, let's go on my private jet and we'll go to this whatever, right? Not that they want a private jet, but it's like the middle class version of something like that. I don't know what these two people are making, but anyway, Costa Rica. I'm thinking like she just has poor judgment. Like none of the things, all of the checklist options of douchebaggery seem to bother her in the slightest. She doesn't get creepy vibes from him, which I guess clearly would be the main thing. He is a douchebag, but at least he's not like an asshole, right? He's not emotionally unstable in any way, right? So not the worst judgment. But it's something you only seen twice. And the second time there was a third person in the second time they spent any time together. So the third time you're going to spend time with somebody, you're going to fly to another country. You only kissed once. And during this time, he's dismissive of the pandemic happening, right? Like, whatever, YOLO. And when they go to the airport, they meet at the airport. That's when she finds out he's a vlogger. She's like, if I had known he was a vlogger, that would have been a red flag. What kind of research did you do on this guy? I mean, even like I could see maybe after the first date. The internet is so easy to just look at, like, what is his social media? Do you have social media? You can find out a lot about a person by their social media. Clearly would have known that he was a vlogger if she had looked at his social media. But she doesn't know until she shows up at the airport. And like her, before deciding to go, talks to her friend and her mom, who are both supportive of it. Her friend's like, make sure you have your location on at all times. But they're both like, yeah, sure, that sounds fine to go with this guy you've met twice. You don't even know that he's a vlogger. You clearly don't know that much about this guy. And we don't see what they talked about on their dates. Right. But clearly he never brought up that she never asked, hey, what do you do? Like, you travel a lot. What's up with that? Like, he never mentioned, he seems like a guy that would have it in his profile. I have what I do in my profile, which is painful to talk about. And when they go, the flight was on March 17th, 2020. 2 days after everything shut down. Everything shut down on the 15th, right? NBA shut down. Tennis tournament shut down. Coachella shut down. Like, everything shut down. Everything canceled. And he's like, it's no big deal. Let's go. That's not a pandemic. So when they show up on the 17th to this flight, they are like 2 of maybe 7 people on this entire plane. And when they show up, she realizes that they are sharing a bed. She's only kissed this guy. She's got a kiss on the cheek. Maybe they kissed once on the lips. And now they're sharing a bed. And she didn't even realize that till they showed up. No research. Never asked what he does, which I don't know what his job is. I don't know if his job is vlogging. But still, like, knowing... I can't imagine somebody who vlogs not telling people, especially if they ask, what do you do? What do you do for work? What do you do for fun? Oh, I like to travel. I film myself traveling. I'm Movie Matt. And this is like, I'm regretting. This is still in the section where I'm regretting this documentary. And seeing that he shot it, and I'm like, realizing it's like, oh, I'm contributing to the douchebaggery. I'm making the situation worse. Let's take a quick break from this episode because I want to talk about, are you looking for the perfect gift for that art lover in your life? Look no further than inspireddisorder.com. Our gift cards can be used to purchase original artwork from The Many Faces, a collection of over 2,000 original abstract ink portraits. These one-of-a-kind pieces make for a truly unique and meaningful gift. But that's not all. Our gift cards can also be used to purchase high-quality prints and t-shirts featuring these amazing paintings. Plus, if the recipient is a fan of The Ray Taylor Show, they can use the gift card to purchase merchandise from the show as well. So why wait? Head on over to inspireddisorder.com and purchase a gift card today. Your loved one will be sure to appreciate the thought and creativity behind such a unique gift. Thank you for considering inspireddisorder.com for all of your gift needs. And now, back to the show. Right? And then cut to day 4 when they're supposed to be flying back. And their whole time, like before that, it feels very awkward. Right? Because there's like, seriously feels like very little to no physical attraction. Which it could just be cut that way. Who knows? That, they could have made it seem whatever. But it just feels awkward. They're both from New York. And on their 4th day is when flights get canceled. Their flight gets canceled. And they realize that, everything is lockdown quarantine. Borders are shut down. Flights are canceled. They can't leave. And things are being shut down in Costa Rica. And because New York during the pandemic was kind of like a lot of people left New York during the pandemic who lived there, because it's like so many people, and it's like it's just a crazy situation. A lot of people left big cities in general during the pandemic. So part of that, they were like happy. I was like, cool, we got out of there. Silver lining, whatever. Although they have no idea, right? We get this counter, like how many days they've been there, and then their departure date, and it goes to unknown. They have no idea when they're leaving. And they're stuck at this resort, right? Which is nice. But even that gets closed down, right? Can't go to the beach, can't go to the gym. They have a pool in their room, so that's nice. And they're far removed from everything, right? It would have been a dream. Like, that would be a dream vacation for me to go with a girlfriend that I had known been on more than 3 dates. But that would be like you're forcing me to be on vacation. And of course, these people, however they make money, they're able to work remotely. So they're, they clearly make good money, and they're able to still work. So it would have been a crazy situation if it was somebody like me. And they're like, well, I guess I'm going to be homeless in Costa Rica now. So they had a pool. That was nice. And so far removed from everything. And then we start to get to know more about them. We find out that her mom is a nurse, which she's very concerned about, obviously, pandemic. And then you find out that her dad is super strict, which means that she's lies. One of her things is that she's a pathological liar. To not only her dad, but to other people. She lies to her job about where she is. She lies to her dad. She tells him that she's on this trip with friends, with a group of friends. I think even she lied to her mom at first, but she eventually tells her mom, and then eventually comes clean. But she's like somebody that like lies a lot. And it's because her parents are strict, her dad's really strict, and all that shit. And you see this guy's super close with his family, which is crazy to me. It's always crazy when people have good relationships with their family. It's like, I have no idea what that's like. And it is somebody in his grandpa's retirement home gets COVID, so he's kind of worried about that, right? So slowly getting to know these people, slowly becoming a little bit more sympathetic, which obviously had to be stressful for both of them. Her mom's a nurse, grandpa potentially, right? There's people that are close to them that, could die and them not being able to do anything or go and see them. And then kind of the adventure kind of begins, right? Then it kind of starts to get fun, right? Because eventually they get kicked out of the resort at like day 11, and they have a departure date 21 days. So day 11, 21 days. So they're going to be there like a month. So this 4-day vacation is turning into a month. And because they're getting kicked out of the resort, right? The resort's got to close down. They can't do it. They end up getting an Airbnb. Person that has, gives them a deal. Right. Also, they're lucky. They have money. They can work. Right. It's super nice house, pool, jacuzzi. Right. And the dude's filming everything because he's a vlogger. Right. So we're getting footage of all this stuff. And you see they're both working. His schedule is not as strict as hers. Right. He's a lot more flexible with whatever he does, which we never find out what they do. But at least they're both able to make money. And also kind of gives them a way to, they're not just around each other all the time. Like part of the day they're both working, so there's a little bit of a break there. And like I'm starting to like this guy more, right? Because you find he's trying to keep things fun. They have these date nights where they're doing all kinds of fun different things. They do a bunch of, like, he's like, oh, we'll just do like a bunch of fun dates throughout the day. And like he tries to keep it fun and interesting, right? Working out, yoga, they take the magic tricks, dance lessons. Every night they make a fancy meal, which, during the pandemic, I signed up for HelloFresh. So I was doing a lot of cooking. I think that was a very big thing most people were doing, like kind of getting into cooking for the first time. So they're doing all these fancy meals. So props to him for trying to keep things interesting, right? They go on a day trip. There's a moment where he's driving too close to a lagoon and the car almost falls in, right? So they're like crazy things that, like, they're having fun, trying to enjoy this time and trying to also make it so they're not getting on each other's nerves in any way, right? And it seems like a while before, at least before they mention that they're actually even having sex in this documentary, right? Obviously, it could have happened a lot sooner. Obviously, knowing how protective she is about her parents not knowing the truth, I wouldn't be surprised if the events of this documentary were edited in a certain way to not really focus on whenever they started to have sex. But at some point they did, which is kind of crazy that it would take so long. And maybe it didn't. But I think they did that because part of the many kind of things that happen that are unique to this situation is that she eventually runs out of birth control, and she's like trying to figure out how to get birth control. At some point there's like a pregnancy scare, and you see throughout this whole like he's super supportive and positive. So it's like throughout this whole thing, it's like, yeah, he's a douchebag, and almost like he's got a laundry list of douchebaggery, but deep down he's a nice guy, which is like, okay, I like this guy. He's super okay, I get it. He's understanding of her past relationships. He's understanding of why she is the way she is. She acts the way she does. She lies about things because of her dad, but she's, honest with him. So I'm like becoming far more sympathetic with these characters as we go on. And then you get to like day 29 and there's another delay. And it goes from them supposedly leaving at like after a month to now they're going to be there for another month and a half. And it's just like, oh my God. And it's like, once the delay started, that's when I started liking this documentary. That's when we get into the fun parts of the documentary, where we get to know these people and my opinions change. And it's like from a 4-day third date to now 2.5 months. It's just insane. And you see at that point, which I think is, I don't know how closely that relates to a lot of people, how they were dealing with the pandemic. But you see that, like, they're day drinking and they're like, things are kind of spiraling out of control. They're like, they're no longer performing. He's no longer performing for the blogs. All the walls are coming down, right? The real is getting real. And I think this is going to get way more dramatic, as most reality shows do. But they don't. I mean, they definitely, they handle it in a way that shows not only they're not, like, you never really see them butting heads or arguing or fighting. Like, they seem, as far as compatibility wise, they seem to be on each other's team in a lot of ways. Right? So I like that. Despite the fact that they're still very much not willing to be in a relationship or acknowledge that they care for each other, right? They're both like have this mental thing where they're against even acknowledging that kind of connection that they may have. And they go on these adventures. They leave that Airbnb. They're like, well, let's go try other things. They stay in like a tree house. They go camping. They're going all over. You're seeing them driving all over to stay at different places, to just experience different things since they're there, right? Keeping it fun, doing interesting things. They're not just stuck in one place. And also relying on or, pleading with the hosts of these Airbnbs to kind of give them a deal because they're make sure to highlight how many days they've been stuck there and all this stuff. Right, so it seems like even a fun trip, they really, and I think a lot of it was him, is like really put a lot of effort into making it an interesting time instead of them just staying at the one Airbnb the whole time and riding it out in one location instead of making it more fun. And their like mental thing about not wanting to be in a relationship, like, is so foreign to me. I mean, I've been single for like a decade now, and I've no desire to be in a relationship. But I'm also not actively just dating people either, because I know that like I fall for people super fast, super easy. And like I feel like I would never have the kind of control that these people do. I would just like, because I'm so like, there's part of me that's so desperate to want to be loved and needed, and like my own issues, that like watching this is so foreign to me, that these people are able to like keep their walls up and not admit that they have any kind of actual feelings for each other. So then he eventually posts up a vlog introducing his audience or whatever to her. And it takes a while. And it goes viral. And then now she's worried, oh, this story's going to get out. Right? Forcing her to be honest. Forcing her to, kind of come clean to people. And you see how that all goes. Right? And she doesn't like it. She doesn't like the attention. She doesn't like getting noticed. And it's not until, right, after so long, 70-some days, they spend a ton of money to make sure that they can get home. And it's not until they actually get back in the States where they actually come clean, like actually, like officially label themselves as boyfriend and girlfriend. After spending like 2.5 months with each other, and during like when everything's popping off and he's doing interviews, he let it slip that like they're boyfriend, girlfriend, and that like fucked with her because she's like, I never said that. We never. And then it's not until they get back in the States where it's like, she's comfortable, like, admitting that they have feelings for each other and that they're exclusive. Which I found absolutely adorable by that time, right? It's like, of course, you guys are clearly a great match. The fact that you survived this and you still enjoy being around each other, right? You're not just like wanting to split as soon as you get back on American soil. Like, clearly there's a match there. So this ended up being great, right? A super unique experience. I fell in love with both of them, right? Them together, I think, makes complete sense. And at the end, I was crying. Right? Something about people finding love, especially after being so closed off throughout the whole experience, and then finally being open and willing. Right? It's still possible, right? I never expected to be crying at the end of this, especially at the beginning where I was like, why am I watching this? And then by the end, I'm like, oh, this is so beautiful. It was so beautiful. You know? So that's my thoughts. Thank you for watching to this episode of the Ray Taylor Show. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on the documentary Longest Third Date. Don't forget to tune in every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for new reviews of TV shows and movies, and join the conversation by leaving a comment on your favorite podcast platform or over on youtube.com/inspireddisorder if you are watching this. Until next time, enjoy the show. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.